Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and it is finally time for a slightly delayed post-game report from the M20 Prerelease. Now, it's no secret that core sets are designed very differently than any other set, and usually the whole, okay, it's a standard set, mostly new cards, very central mechanics, that whole constructed-oriented design also kind of overflows into the sealed format. So in other words, you can take some cards and get something going with some sort of central synergy or theme. Core sets are just a weird, scattered amalgamation of unrelated stuff for the most part, and this is no exception. And I've got to say, it showed. Really low-powered, weird, random decks with no theme, no point. It was just, oh look, this card's slightly better than this one, and this is just boring vanilla junk, and oh look, this one has a keyword on it. Wow. And that is not a bad thing. The more powerful the deck, the shorter the games, the more boring, repetitive, stupid, just waste of time. I mean, the round is still 50 minutes. I mean, you go to the formats that are usually done in like 2, 3, 4 turns. It's just dumb. Those decks are dumb. Those formats are dumb. They're repetitive, boring, stupid, and brainless. I'd rather go 15 or 20 turns, make decisions, have dynamic back and forth, have options about should I cast this now or later, should I target this or that, should I use this mode on the spell or that mode, should I blow this up first, then bring out my Planeswalker, or should I bring out my Planeswalker, use their negative ability, then and then keep the removal spell. Like, you know, actual intelligent decisions based on your experience and knowing what your opponent is playing. Instead of just, oh, I got my combo off, yay, oh, I cast this card. You've basically lost. I mean, you probably didn't lose for 3 more turns, but you've basically lost. Cards like that, decks like that, formats like that, boring. Just boring, toxic, unfun garbage. And unfortunately, that's pretty much what's infested Magic for the last couple years. So lower powered, slower, more decision and skill heavy Magic is very fun. I got that vibe not just from myself because it's always been my opinion, but from everybody there. And I mean, they're really pushing it, but I'd almost say to a point, and this is kind of the point, M20, lower powered Magic is better. Now, you go any lower powered, it's just going to be boring, where nothing does anything and nothing stands out. You got to have some scary cards to actually make the game end at some point. Otherwise, too much vanilla stuff, too much identical cards, nothing unique, nothing that builds up over time and is an actual threat, and it just turns into like checkers. Everything does one thing, and it's just a sequence of events equals the winner, and total snooze fest. So I don't think M20 is there yet, but we've also seen hyper-powered sets where you just count the number of bombs you have, and that's how well you'll do. It was that simple. There was so many unstoppable game-ending cards in the set, like we're talking 10 to 20, that if you pulled a couple and got them out, it was just first person to get out their bomb wins, unless you could absolutely stop them. Very, very dumb. Not fun either. Not fair. Huge distance between the worst deck and the best deck at the event. Well, and really, to take out skill, the worst and best pool of cards. And I don't like pre-releases like that. I don't like opening the packs and say, well, I guess I wasted the next 4 or 5 hours. Or, well, literally nobody has any chance against this. I already know I'm going to win out. I mean, yeah, cool, you get prizes, whatever, but, I mean, I'd like to at least give my opponent a chance for fairness and for fun. So, I did notice this, you guys probably did too, that most of the decks were very similar in power. I mean, I had the most vanilla, boring, just blah deck you could possibly imagine. I could say the same about my pool. Other colors had some standouts, but then they had too many disqualified cards that I just couldn't play, that I literally wouldn't have been able to even get to 40 if I picked those colors, so I had to ditch them right away. It was like specific stuff, sideboard cards, synergy dependent cards that do not function on their own. So I was pretty much forced to play the 2 colors that I did, and it was just like vanilla creatures, pretty blah stuff, just, oh look, this has death touch, oh look, this has a little trigger, ooh. Nothing too interesting, one single piece of equipment. I mean, it was about as vanilla and average as you can possibly get, but I had a couple little problematic stars in there, like some flyers, some recurring triggers. I had the 7/6 dinosaur that costs 3. A lot of games I got that out, I won. That was like the big bomb. I had the 5/5 Death Toucher for 6. And like I said, it wasn't really exciting, but if I got it out, boy, I just swung the game in my favor. You know, it wasn't like getting out the Scarab God or like a Planeswalker or something. But it was interesting gameplay. I've got to say, like, would I have enjoyed, for 2 different reasons, my deck being more dynamic and more powerful? Yes, because I didn't exactly win all 4 rounds. I actually went, first round tie, second round win, third round loss, fourth round win. which is pretty good. And for the little tiebreaker, I ended up winning the prize pack. So I got 3 packs out of 4 rounds. I mean, that's pretty good for that bad of a deck. But most everybody else's deck sucked too. Now, when it was tie-win and I went into the 3rd round, I was playing against the 4th or 3rd place person. Once again, as is the norm at these events, it was very clear that he just simply had a better deck than me. He started pulling out like rares and mythics where I was like, I don't have anything of that caliber in my deck. Now that said, I almost beat him. So it was kind of nice to see that the distance between like a really weak deck and a really good deck was pretty narrow to the point where you could still pull off a win. You still had a chance. The game was still worth playing. I would not say that about A3 Revolt or War of the Spark. So that was pretty nice, and I'm not saying there weren't any just breakaway mythics that would dominate the game, but 1, they're mythics, not many people pulled them, and even good rares. And 2, I mean, they weren't that good. In a lot of them, it's not like it's like some narrow 95% shut down everything card where you need like one particular type of thing to remove it, because it's like hexproof and indestructible and goes to the top of your deck, and if it dies, you take the board with you, you know, something just ridiculous like that. And they printed stuff like that in the past. I'm specifically referring to Scarab God, and I'm going to keep referring to it for the next 10 years because that card is unforgivable. But I mean, just think about it. Let's say there was 1 or 2 like that. Well, what are the odds somebody will pull it, and then it's in their deck? What are the odds they'll even have the rest of the colors support that to the point where they'd be able to play it? And on top of that, what are the odds that they'd actually pull it out of 40 in a 40-card deck? Problematic cards, they're really only problems when you have a really lot of them, or when somebody's outrageously lucky. So the lack of anything like that was very, very, very nice. I think people were enjoying the gameplay. We had a lot of like newer people to Magic, or like people returning to Magic who weren't, you know, that up on it because they hadn't played in a while. And they loved the simpler decisions, the lower power, and like the lower pace or slower pace. And they had a really good time instead of like the just chaos and decisions and just absolute mess and like order of operations and everything that was War of the Spark. I mean, even me at 5 a.m, I don't want to dick around with none of that either. Like, I've been playing for so many years that I made maybe 1 or 2 mistakes at the last pre-release, but other people were getting mighty frustrated and like dropping. So I think, a lot lower power, not quite to the point of core sets, but somewhere in the middle would be nice for like the next couple sets. And that by far was a standout feature of the pre-release that I wanted to point out. So if you haven't attended one and you can go to one on Sunday, I highly recommend it. I had fun even though nothing that I pulled in the prize packs or my pre-release kit was worth even above, I think, 5. Surprise, core sets are unvaluable garbage. I mean, I don't know if that's news to you. But whatever, it was still fun. The gameplay was fun, and I was pretty happy with my performance. And the people there, as is always true at that LGS, were super, super cool. And I guess if you look at my YouTube stats, which has now fallen to, I think, just below 2% female, I guess basing it on that, you could say a lot of females showed up to this event. I mean, there was at least like 4 or 5 out of like, I don't know how many were there, probably 30. And that's pretty high. And once again, because we're not SJW idiots, we don't see everything through the lens of gender and immediately like walk into a room and say, okay, how many people are what color, what age, what gender, what this, that, whatever. Okay, now I have to treat them all differently accordingly because diversity. I walk in and I'm like, oh, look, a bunch of geeky people. Cool, let's play some Magic. Like, it's not even on my mind about, oh, I wonder if this person is, like, half Latino. Who gives a shit? That's why I love how all the SJWs at Wizards and all the staff that constantly bombard us with, that we're so racist and sexist in this community and you Magic players are terrible and blah, 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 insulting our customers. When everything that they say about how we should treat each other and how we should go out of our way to like get certain numbers and checkboxes at certain events and how they don't want any more white judges, and they actually, made everything about race and gender. So that's the first thing any of them ever think about, and that's how they treat everybody is based on race and gender, which is actually kind of racist and sexist. So mini rant about how the SJWs are the least like pro-diversity, pro-just equality I've ever seen in my life, and they're all just secretly racist idiots. That said, I couldn't tell you what color, background, religion, or anything, or orientation anybody was at that damn event, because I don't care. Nobody there cares. I don't care who I'm paired up against. I care way more about their personality than anything else about them. Oh, not to mention their skill level and how quickly they play. Like, that's real stuff. But then why am I mentioning that there were so many females there? Because, I mean, hooray, I guess Wizards is saying our goal is to get more females in the game. And oh no, us testosterone-obsessed macho Cavemen didn't scare away the women folk, I guess, this time. You know what? Fuck you, Wizards, calling us all sexist and shit and acting like men drool over women and don't know how to associate with them. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I went to a public school, so growing up, 50% of everybody I worked with in groups and friends and sat with at the lunch table were female. So I know how to act around females. In fact, all the jobs I worked at were about 50% female. And when I go shopping, there's about 50% females. Because the population of Earth, the planet I live on, is about 51% female. I mean, it really undercuts them sitting there insulting us about all this. And seriously, if you're thinking I'm making a big deal about this, it's because they will not shut up about it in their official statements made on social media by just individual staff members, all their like Women in Magic special events, and oh my God, the articles about it, they will not shut up about it. But the irony of it is they are super discriminatory. They are doing so much to push back any progress on equality. It's comical, and they don't even realize it. It's all about superiority and them thinking that they're so much better than everybody else. And look at how much more diverse and how much more accepting we are. Ooh, pat ourselves on the back. And it's all fake, and it's all sending society back to the 1950s. So females showed up, nobody gave a shit, and nobody thought about it twice. So suck it, Wizards. Whether you're going to admit that that's actually what you wanted or not, I think it's great. I'll admit that they themselves, with their own marketing in the 90s, made it a guys thing, and kind of that's who they went after. That's the demographic they advertised to, and that's who the style of the game purposely appealed to. And if they want to back that up and say, no, we want double the money because, oops, there's another gender out there in society that can buy our products, I mean, cool. But then, hilariously enough, they're screwing it up on the path there every way they possibly could. The whole women are victims, men are terrible, shame, shame, shame on all of you, you're all sexist. Not quite how you get what the result was today at my F&M, or my LGS, it wasn't F&M. Men and women working together of all different ages and genders and backgrounds. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was an absolute dream, I guess. Or as I like to call it, just another Saturday, because where the hell do they live where everybody's like an idiot? So mini rant about social justice bullshit over with. I feel like that might be the second time I said that, but I'm not kidding this time. I will say about the attendance, it was lower than I've seen. I think more people came out for War, and I think even more people came out for the last Ravnica one before that. But then again, I didn't go to the 3 o'clock Friday one. I went to the one on Saturday. So that's about as not apples to apples as you can get. Now, the attendance for a Saturday event, I think, was maybe down a little bit. But I think it's within the margin of random chance. So I don't know if people were just like, I'm sick of the state of standard, I'm just staying away from Magic, and then they just forget about this event because they didn't hear about it or they didn't care. Or if they're like, oh, it's a core set. I don't like going to pre-releases for core sets. Or if it was just random chance, too close to a holiday weekend, it could be anything. I don't know, it seemed like kind of a pretty stark drop-off, honestly, after like them saying the last couple were almost back-to-back the biggest events ever. Like, no kidding, they said one of the Ravnica sets was or maybe Dominaria, one of them, was the most attended pre-release in the history of the game. So they seem to be going in a downward direction. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from everybody, was they're like, yeah, I've seen and been to bigger events. Like, it wasn't, oh my gosh, nobody showed up, but it was not as big as in the past. Seems pretty universal everywhere. So I don't know what to think about that. Like I said, M20 is boring and standard is crap, so that could be two factors. Other than that, I don't have an explanation. Maybe the shiny newness of Arena is wearing off and they're losing customers, so that just translates to store events too? Really hard to say. I really don't know. So that sucks for the store income, but we weren't like out of seats and trying to cram people in and everybody's trying to sneak past each other and we're all fat as hell. So it's slightly more comfortable, but I also know that like my store could have made double if they had double the people, but I don't think this is a particularly profitable event. I mean, kind of, because those kits, they get them for like, I don't know, 16, 17. Something in that neighborhood, I think. But also, like, the prize support is pretty extensive, depending upon how conservative or, willy-nilly they are with the prizes at your place. I mean, I'd almost think they just about break even when people are buying, like, sleeves and deck boxes, which have a pretty good margin. But, I mean, sealed product in singles is where the money comes from. So, don't forget that. But if they're not there, they're not buying a box, because remember, they still have that policy where you can buy one entire box at a pre-release 1 week early. And then as of like Monday, you can no longer do that. You got to wait till Friday, the actual release. So, I mean, if less people are there, less people are doing that. And I saw next to nobody, if not actually nobody at this event doing it, buying, like taking advantage of that booster box thing. But the real hardcore people were there on Friday in all likelihood, if they didn't have to work. But then we didn't have a Midnight Friday one. So that's why this is so different. I don't really know how to gauge it. And I don't really know what it did for sales. I think I might actually just straight up ask the staff, like, what did they think the timing change did overall? But I think overall this was less intended, less big, and less profitable. I really do feel like that. So the last thing I wanted to hit on is just pool quality. Just the number of useless cards was too high. Codependent niche stuff is what they stuff into core sets all the time. And just conditional stuff, sideboard stuff. It's not like I'm going to build the M20 deck that green has, their mechanic. It's just a bunch of onesie-twosie crap that people buy in singles and put in sideboards and maybe mainboard. It's so weird and obscure, and there's so many cards where you look at it and you're like, well, reject. Oh, that's not good for my deck. Oh, that's too specific. That's too conditional. And it made it really hard to build a good deck. A lot of people, a huge number of people were running 3-color because they had to. I was almost pressured into running 3-color. And my deck would have been more exciting. It's just I would have splashed red, and it would have just been like removal and 2 bombs. So nothing too spectacular. I had a Chandra, but it was the useless uncommon one, just beyond useless. So it wasn't just, oh, I got 3 pretty good colors, I'll just pick 2. No, I should go all 3 and just cut out the extraneous stuff and just go all power, all let's go, and just cross my fingers and hope the colors fix themselves. This was like, wow, it's either a bunch of vanilla crap or I add another color. Well, I guess I add another color just to make it a vaguely playable deck with like above average cards. And if you wanted to try to go all bombs because your pool was actually pretty good, I guarantee you're going 3 colors unless you're the luckiest person on the planet. But yeah, the one real big downside that I think took the whole, oh, this is a low power set too far, was the fact that so many cards were rejected. I mean, I looked at my colors and I go playable, not playable. And I go left, right, then I count them and compare them and pick out 2 colors. That's how I recommend everybody do it. And I was rejecting in some colors. In fact, I think in 3 out of my 5 colors, about 50% of the cards. That's terrible. And when I counted my deck, I was only 1 card over. I was at 25, but I decided with my curve, 16 was appropriate for the number of lands. So I had to cut 1 card. Usually I'm at like what would be after lands 56. And then I got to cut like 10 and do a bunch of curve calculations and just weigh cards against each other and optimize it so that I don't drown out my best bombs, because you should never go above 40 if you've got some really, really good powerful cards in there, because every time you draw, you're lowering your odds cumulatively, I guess, or progressively, just by the sheer action of drawing from a bigger number each time. Yes, it gets progressively easier to draw the card, it's just you're progressively lowering your odds by having a bigger starting number. Hopefully that makes sense. So usually I really have trouble trimming it down. Sometimes I'm just like, no, these are all equivalent, or if I get rid of this, I'll have no mid-range, no curve. I'm just gonna run 44. This time I was like, wow, I barely have enough to build a deck. Okay. And then on top of that, when I did build the deck, my deck sucked. And it's not just, oh, it's low-powered cards, which I can deal with that as long as they're on curve and I can kind of build like a welcome deck out of it where it at least like functions. This was like, no, these cards are unplayable. They're too specific. Like, you cannot put this card in your deck. It's too bad. It's just the definition of unplayable, irrelevant, and do nothing. You can't put this in a sealed event deck. And when like 30 to 40% of the cards that I open in my pool, I would describe that way, ooh, that's bad. So everybody who goes to one of these events runs the risk of not only very likely being pushed into 3 colors because of it, but also just not even being able to build a deck. We had a couple people running 5 colors. That's how bad their pool was. They're just like, I can't do this. I was already at 3 considering 4, so I said, screw it. Let's just run a best of reel and cross my fingers and run some fixing. Ooh, I would hate for that to be me, because getting color screwed, it's like you didn't even play the game because, well, let's be honest, you didn't. So that's like the biggest flaw, my biggest complaint about this. But otherwise, it seemed like most people had a good time. Very little complaints. Very level, power level, fair for everybody. It was who could outplay the others or outluck the others, which is traditional Magic. And it was really fun and enjoyed by all. So, I mean, at the end of the day, cool. Nobody ever said deck building out of a pool was easy. I just thought this was a little skating it on the disaster side, possibly. They're skating on a thin line or standing on the knife edge. I don't think any of those are the correct idiom. But regardless, let me know how yours went. Did you have fun? Did you not? And let me know the exact breakdown of what skin color, gender, age, orientation, everything. We got to do those statistics down below. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Nobody cares except for wizards because they're all racist idiots. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next video.